नारायणं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 1, Advent of Lord Krishna, Introduction, text number 41 onwards. So yesterday we studied how Kansa wanted to kill Devaki and he held her here by his left hand, and by the right hand he was carrying a sword ready to cut out Devaki's throat. But Vasudevji stopped him. Vasudevji is giving different arguments for trying to pacify and convince Kansa not to kill Devaki. Swapne yatha pashyati dehamidrisham manorathe nabhi anivishta chetana drishta shrutabhyam manasanu chintayan prapadyate tatkimapi hi apsmritihi. Having experienced a situation by seeing or hearing about it, one contemplates and speculates about that situation, and thus one surrenders to it, not considering his present body. Similarly, by mental adjustments, one dreams at night of living under different circumstances in different bodies and forgets his actual position. Under this same process, one gives up his present body and accepts another. Tatha dehantar prapti. So yesterday we were discussing how in the present body we start for the next body because the consciousness is getting developed for the next body. So this is more clearly explained here. Transmigration of the soul is very clearly explained in this verse. One sometimes forgets his present body and thinks of his childhood body, a body of the past, and of how one was playing, jumping, talking, and so on. When the material body is no longer workable, it becomes dust. For dust thou art, and unto dust shalt thou return. But when the body again mixes with the five material elements, earth, water, fire, air, and ether, the mind continues to work. The mind is a subtle substance in which the body is created, as we actually experience in our dreams, and also when we are awake in contemplation. One must understand that the process of mental speculation develops a new type of body that does not actually exist. If we can understand the nature of the mind, the manorathen, and its thinking, feeling, and willing, one can very easily understand how from the mind different types of bodies develop. So it all depends upon the mind, because mind is not controlled. Manorathen na sati davato bhahi. And mind goes on with thinking, feeling, and willing, and then the action is by the working senses, and mind just guides the subtle body to the next body. The Krishna consciousness movement therefore offers a process of transcendental activities wherein the mind is fully absorbed in affairs pertaining to Krishna. The presence of the soul is perceived by consciousness, and one must purify his consciousness from material to spiritual, or in other words, to Krishna consciousness. That which is spiritual is eternal, and that which is material is temporary. Without Krishna consciousness, one's consciousness is always absorbed in temporary things. For everyone, therefore, Krishna recommends in Bhagavad Gita, Man mana bhavamadukto. One should always be absorbed in thoughts of Krishna. One should become his devotee. One should always engage in his service and worship him as the supreme great. And one should always offer him obeisances. In the material world, one is always a servant of a greater person. And in the spiritual world, our constitutional position is to serve the supreme, the greatest, Param Brahma. This is the instruction of Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Jivera Swarupa Krishnera Nityadas. So these mind does not want to serve. In the material world, everybody wants to be the controller. This is what we are here for. We want to control. We want to hold on to things, possess things. It means we want to be the proprietor and we want to be the enjoyers. So material world, nobody wants to serve. But our real position is of service. Jivera Swarupa Krishnera Nitya Das. Nitya Das. Eternally we are servants of Krishna. Now that thing has to be put into the mind again and again and again. And we have to continue with our services. Devotional service. Service to everybody else. That's why when we are initiated, we get the name Das or Dasi, that we are servants. Of course, when others call us Prabhu, we think we are the masters. And we really act like that. But no, the mood should be of service. But that thing has to be ingrained all the time. To act in Krishna consciousness is a perfection of life and the highest perfection of yoga. As Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Yogi Nam Api Sarvesha. Of all yogis, he who always abides in me with great faith, worshipping me in transcendental loving service, is most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. The condition of the mind which flickers between sankalpa and vikalpa, accepting something and rejecting it, is very important in transferring the soul to another material body at the time of death. Now, this is also one of the qualities or conditions of the mind. It flickers, accepts something and rejects it. So it accepts, like when they come to on the spiritual path, it accepts, oh yes, philosophy is very nice. I need to chant, I need to read, I need to do this service, I need to do that, I need to do that. And very soon we start developing boredom out of it. And that boredom comes because first of all, we are not used to all these services, all these new things. And for some time, it looks very attractive. And or maybe we commit offenses. That's why we become detached or we don't get attachment to Krishna. And then we start rejecting it. But this has to go on continuously. Means we don't listen to the mind, this aspect of the mind. Oh, no, accept, reject, accept, reject, accept, reject. No, we have to do it. Carry on with it. And that's what Prabhupada said, this condition is very important. Whatever happens, what happens is whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, that state he will attain without fail. Therefore, one must train the mind in the system of Bhakti Yoga, as did Maharaj Ambarish, who kept himself always in Krishna consciousness. So when Krishna says, whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body. Now, before that, Prabhupada says, mind keeps on flickering. Accept something, reject it. Accept, reject, acceptance, rejection. But that state is actually decided by the consciousness, wherever our consciousness is. And this is what we'll be thinking of at the time of death. And this is what Prabhupada says, one has to train the mind in the system of Bhakti Yoga, as did Maharaj Ambarish, who kept himself always in Krishna consciousness. Savai mana Krishna padaravindevo. One must fix the mind at the lotus feet of Krishna 24 hours a day. And mind is flickering. Arjun himself said it's difficult to control the mind. But here the injunction is to fix the mind at the lotus feet of Krishna. Because intelligence is above the mind and soul is above the intelligence. Soul can control the mind, or should control the mind. And how to control? Where to control? At the lotus feet of Krishna. Why Krishna is Rishikesh? Mind is one of the Rishika or Indriyas or senses. And Krishna is the Lord of the senses. Soul is also Lord of at least the mind and the material senses of our body. So we have to control. We have to engage ourselves in the service of Krishna. Okay, mind is not there, fine. Let the other senses be in the service of Krishna. This is what soul has to do. If the mind is fixed upon Krishna's lotus feet, the activities of the other senses will be engaged in Krishna's service. Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhaktiruchyate. To serve Rishikesha, the master of the senses, with purified senses is called bhakti. Those who constantly engage in devotional service are situated in transcendental state, above the material modes of nature. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Mam chayo avyabhicharena. One who engages in full devotional service, who does not fall down in any circumstance, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. One must learn the secret of success from the Vedic literatures, especially when the cream of Vedic literatures is presented by Bhagavad Gita as it is. So Bhagavad Gita has everything, all the instructions we need. Further, Prabhupada says, because the mind is ultimately controlled by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, the word apasmriti is significant. Forgetfulness of one's own identity is called apasmriti. This apasmriti can be controlled by the Supreme Lord. For the Lord says, Matta smritir jnanam apohanam cha. From me come remembrance, knowledge and forgetfulness. So instead of allowing one to forget one's real position, Krishna can revive one's original identity at the time of one's death, even though the mind may be flickering. Although the mind may work imperfectly at the time of death, Krishna gives a devotee shelter at his lotus. So Krishna sees what a devotee has done. So mind can go anywhere at the time of death because we have no control. But Krishna sees, Krishna knows what we have done. And Krishna has full control on everything. So he can give shelter. Therefore, when a devotee gives up his body, the mind does not take him to another material body. Rather, Krishna takes the devotee to that place where he is engaged in his pastime, as we have already discussed in the previous verses. Means to that place, to that universe where the devotee gets trained up. One's consciousness, therefore, must always be absorbed in Krishna, and then one's life will be successful. Otherwise, the mind will carry the soul to enter the material body. The soul will be placed in the semen of a father and discharged into the womb of a mother. The semen and ovum create a particular type of body according to the form of the father and mother. And when the body is mature, the soul emerges in that body and begins a new life. The soul emerges. The soul is there from the very moment when the semen and ovum are united. This is a process of transmigration of the soul from one body to another. Unfortunately, those who are less intelligent think that when the body disappears, everything is finished. The entire world is being misled by such fools and rascals. But as stated in Bhagavad Gita, Nahanyate Hanyamaneshati, the soul does not die when the body is destroyed. Rather, the soul takes on another body. So now we have to decide whether we're going to let the mind control our destiny, what we're going to do next, and what kind of body we're going to get next, or we want Krishna to decide. So we keep on serving Krishna with everything and anything possible and beyond. And as Prabhupada says, even if our mind is flickering, Krishna can give shelter. Krishna is very merciful. This is the whole process. Yato yato dhavati deva choditam mano vikaratmakamaap panchasu guneshu maya rachiteshu deyaso prapadyamana sahtena jayate. At the time of death, according to the thinking, feeling, and willing of the mind, which is involved in the fruitive activities, one receives a particular body. In other words, the body develops according to the activities of the mind. Changes of body are due to the flickering of the mind. Otherwise, the soul could remain in its original spiritual body. One can very easily understand that the mind is constantly flickering, changing in the quality of its thinking, feeling, and willing. So this is, and just imagine, this is what Vasudevji is telling Kansa on the chariot, and Kansa is about to kill Devaki. And he's saying, you don't listen to your mind. Mind is constantly flickering. Arjun also says the mind is chanchal, flickering, and it changes very strongly. Therefore, Arjun admitted that controlling the mind is not at all possible. This would be as difficult as controlling the wind. In fact, he says, controlling the wind is possible for me rather than controlling the mind. For example, if one were in a boat moving according to the wind on a river or the sea and the wind were uncontrollable, the tilting boat would be very much disturbed and extremely difficult to control. It might even capsize. Therefore, in the Bhava Samudra, the ocean of mental speculation and transmigration to different types of bodies, one must first control the mind. But then what Krishna said, yes, it is difficult, but by practice and detachment, it is possible to control the mind. And this is what Prabhupada says. By regulative practice, one can control the mind, and this is the purpose of the yoga system. Abhyasa yoga yuktena. But there is a chance of failure with the yoga system, especially in this age of Kali, because the yoga system uses artificial means. If the mind is engaged in bhakti yoga, however, by the grace of Krishna, one can very easily control it. Therefore, Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has recommended Hare Nam, Hare Nam, Hare Nam, Hare Nam. One should chant the holy name of the Lord constantly, for the holy name of the Lord is none different from Hari, the Supreme Person. So let the holy name control the mind. We just want to chant. We just want to use our tongue in chanting of the holy name, ears in hearing the name of Krishna. Even if the mind goes here or there, it will come back. By chanting the Hare Krishna mantra constantly, one can fix the mind on the lotus feet of Krishna, and in this way achieve the perfection of yoga. Otherwise, a flickering mind will hover on the platform of mental speculation for sense enjoyment, and one will have to transmigrate from one type of body to another because the mind is trained only in relation to the material elements, or in other words, to sense gratification, which is false. Maya sukhaya baram uddato vimudan. Rascals of vimudan, being controlled by mental speculation, make huge arrangements by which to enjoy life temporarily, but they must give up the body at the time of death, when everything is taken away by Krishna's external energy. And this is so common to see. We make so many arrangements, so many plans. They are all the ramblings of the mind. That's all it is. But Krishna takes away everything at the time of death. At that time, whatever one has created in this life is lost, and one must automatically accept a new body by the force of material nature. In this life, one may have constructed a very tall skyscraper, but in next life, because of one's mentality, one may have to accept a body like that of a cat, a dog, a tree, or perhaps a demigod. And in this regard, Prabhupada also said that our first Prime Minister of India, he had to take his next birth in the body of a dog in a family in Sweden who already had another dog. So so precise, Prabhupada was. Thus, the body is offered by the laws of material nature. Karanam Gunasangavasya. The spirit soul takes birth in higher and lower species of life only because of his association with the three qualities of material nature. So those situated in the mode of goodness gradually go upward to the higher planets. Those in the mode of passion live on the earthly planets, and those in the mode of ignorance go down to the hellish worlds. So three modes and our activities, our association, our consciousness in those three modes, and we take the body accordingly. In conclusion, the Krishna consciousness movement offers the topmost welfare activity for human society. The saner section of human society must therefore take this movement very seriously for the benefit of all humanity. To save oneself from the repetition of birth and death, one must purify his consciousness. Sarvapati vinirmuktam tataparatvena nirmalam. One must be freed from all designations. I'm American, I'm Indian, I'm this, I'm that, and come to the platform of understanding that Krishna is the original master and we are his eternal servants. When the senses are purified and engaged in Krishna's service, one achieves the highest perfection. Krishna consciousness movement is a movement of Bhakti Yoga. Vairagya Vidya Nija Bhakti Yoga. By following the principles of this movement, one becomes disassociated from material mental concoctions and is established on the original platform of the eternal relationship between the living entity and the Supreme Personality of Godhead as servant and master. This, in summary, is the purpose of the Krishna consciousness movement. But even while we are on this path, we start thinking, I'm the controller, I'm the enjoyer, rather than I'm the servant. And when we start thinking like that, we start acting like that, and then we start committing offenses. So when Mahaprabhu says Trunadapi Shuni Chena means, in practice means one has to serve as a menial servant. So even if any service we are doing, it should be in the mode of service, not in the mode of I'm the controller kind of. No, in the mode of servant. Then we are rightly situated. So next purport is also long, so I guess we can stop here. See anybody has any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, please accept my humble obeisance.
Hare Krishna.
Both the verses are very, very deep and very beautiful verse actually. It will take some time to even think about the questions because each and every line has got a lot of realization, even to think.
Yep.
And I was thinking that soul, when we talk about the soul, the whole system is run by the soul. Now that how come? Because it seems to be that soul seems to be very helpless in front of the lower elements like mind and all other 10 senses. So now, if the mind, according to the mind, soul will take the next body. So how to understand that the whole system is running by the mind or the soul?
Well, the body, material body, one is gross and one is subtle, but it's all material. Material means made of Maya. So soul, although very powerful, more powerful than even Maya, material energy. Soul is part and parcel of Krishna. But because it has fallen in this material world, comes under the material modes of nature, so it thinks or not thinks, it is the consciousness becomes that I'm controlled by these material modes. Just like an elephant. Elephant is a very strong, very powerful animal. Very, very powerful. But what is it controlled by? by that little boy sitting on the elephant with a small rod. But elephant is trained like that, that if you don't listen to this boy, you will not get anything to eat and you will not have the union with she elephant. So it becomes conditioned. That's why this word again and again comes, conditioned, conditioned, conditioned. Elephant becomes conditioned that I have to listen to this boy. And that's why it gets bound, it becomes slave. So what is elephant? Elephant is that body and the soul inside the elephant. Now the soul thinks I am the elephant, I am this body. And the mind makes it think that, okay, I have to listen to this boy, otherwise I'll not get anything to eat. And they train him up like that. And that's it.
Very true, Guruji.
Actually, it's simple and it's difficult at the same time.
Actually, Prabhuji, and I will talk a little bit. Sometimes I feel that when we talk about be conscious, now that again, consciousness is a part of the soul only. And how to be conscious when soul is already in the trap of this with all this entanglements. So suddenly, if somebody reminds us, so that comes as a reminder. So we become conscious for a while. Then again, because of this forgetfulness nature, we become again entangled, and then we become forgetful. So most of the times, it is very clear that the mind is actually running the show, and then mind is taking the ownership of everything. But as you mentioned that we have to superior than our lower senses is the mind, and then superior than the mind is our intelligence. But again, intelligence is also not the ultimate, because above intelligence, this consciousness comes, like soul and this thing. So sometimes if I introspect and if I try to analyze, then it seems to be very critical actually. And then about the chanting, as you mentioned, when I am chanting, I mostly notice that even if I am closing my eyes and I'm trying to focus on the words of the chanting, one way the words are coming, ears, like I'm trying to engage my ear, external senses to the transcendental vibration so that I can spiritualize my senses. But at the same time, mind is going here and there again and again, and that is really quite uncontrollable. Even though I'm trying, I'm failing. This is most of the time I'm observing actually. But again, with that hope, as you always constantly say that one day or gradually we will advance. So with this hope only I'm doing it, but there is no improvement I can see. So that is why sometimes I wonder who is actually taking the, is it soul, or like we are becoming the slave of our own senses?
We have been slave of our senses since time immemorial, millions and millions of lifetimes. But now we are trying to be free. So we sincerely try to carry out the orders of Srila Prabhupada and let Prabhupada help us. If Prabhupada recommends to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu or Krishna that this devotee has been working hard, give him some mercy. Krishna will give mercy.
Yes,
So
Prabhuji.
he's our only hope. That's all he is. That's all it is.
Yes, Prabhuji. With this hope only, I think I have to carry on. And this is the only way out. There is no other way also, actually. So
Actually, yes, this is what devotional path is.
yes. Yes, Prabhuji.
It's a path of mercy, path of grace.
Yes, Prabhuji. I have the last question. We have soul and then super soul also within us. So when the role of the super soul comes?
Oh, he's always watching us, guiding us, giving us instructions from within, sanctioning our desires. and sometimes doesn't sanction at all, also happens. So he's always there guiding us, but it depends upon us how much we want to listen to him.
Quality wise, it is similar. Soul is the part and parcel of the super soul, but quantity wise, we are very minute. So now, even we are called actual nature is Satchit Ananda, but Prabhupada mentioned about soul and super soul as like two birds. One is taking the fruits and then enjoying, and then one is observing. Actually, one is not acting. That is super soul. So how come then soul is because of the senses? Is it because of our lower nature? Soul is in trap of all these things and then trying to take the benefit, or I mean, little bit.
Because we wanted to be the enjoyer. So we got entangled.
So even if we don't approach to the super soul is since time memorial, super soul is also giving us the guidance. That is what you are saying. Just that
He's there right next to us in the heart.
Then like sometimes we do not feel that connection at all. It is because of our too much of clouded nature. That is why.
Because the first bird is doing what? Eating the fruits.
Yes.
So it doesn't look at on the other side. Super soul is sitting right there. So eating the fruits is what? Means it's enjoying or suffering the fruits of its own actions.
Correct. So turning towards this super soul, nobody can help us. And this should be our own endeavor. Only by our own, like utilizing our free will, by our own endeavor, only we can turn. Or like
super soul helps from within. Guru and sadhu and shastras help from outside.
Right, Prabhuji, true.
They guide from outside, super soul helps from within, and then we can make progress if we listen.
True. Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for this explanation.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mata. Hare Krishna. See all of you safe and wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Hare